Hi, everybody. This is John Farian, and you're watching another episode of Live Large Universe. And wow, we have an amazing show for you tonight. I was so excited to see when I told everybody that Christine Jourdain from ACSA, also known as the American Council of Snowmobile Associations, is joining me tonight. Man, did the people come out of the woodwork and started sharing out the teaser posts that we had. So, Christine, it's apparent to me that you have quite the fan club. Is that true?
I'm not exactly sure about that, but I'll take it.
Maybe people just appreciate the hard work that you do for them. Is that what it is?
That could be. And it's a Sunday night. They had nothing better to do.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. So, well, hey, Sunday night, here we are, and we got people rolling in. So we got live viewers starting to come in. And my thing that I need to tell everybody is this is when you come in and you start watching the show tonight, please go into the comments and just say, I'm from whatever town, USA, right? And so what we do love to do, and if it's a town, if it's a state, it's a, wherever you're at, just giving us idea where you're tuning in from, because I bet this show particularly tonight is going to get viewers from all over the country, East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, South, North, maybe not South. There's not a lot of snowmobilers in the South, but there's some. Did you believe? It's hard to believe. Like, one of my guests that I interviewed not too long ago, Christine, was from Nevada. And all of us who live up north, we think of like Nevada. You can't snowmobile in Nevada, but you can. There's actually quite a bit of good snowmobiling down there. So, yeah, let us know. I see the Nebraska State Snowmobile Association has joined us. Nice job, everybody. Thank you guys for coming in from Nebraska. And let us know where you're watching from. And then please, please share the show out. And if you share the show out, I've got a little surprise for you. You're going to be entered in to win this amazing first aid kit. So we have a backcountry first aid kit sponsored by Mountain Lab Products. So one of the sponsors of the show. Thank you so much for supporting us by having this product available. And for everybody who's watching, please share the show out, and we'll make sure that you get in and entered in as a chance to win this just for sharing the show out. And guess what? When you share the show out, Christine's important message about what's going on in the world of snowmobiling across the country on a political scene is going to get out to all those important people that need to hear it. So, Christine, welcome to the show as everybody starts dropping in the comments where they're coming in and watching from. We also have Snowmobile Wisconsin is here with us. We have the International Snowmobile Hall of Fame here with us tonight. So we've got some big hitters here on the scene. Christine, are you excited to share with them all this news?
Absolutely.
This is awesome. I got to be honest with you, Christine. When I first signed up for this episode based on the recommendation, in my head, I had this vision of everything I know about state associate, and like it's gonna be kind of a political type post, and like how many people are gonna want to because people like to be entertained, right? And so when you start talking politics when it comes to snowmobiling and everything too, it's a really important topic. But I was like very pleasantly surprised how much engagement that the post had that we shared that we're bringing you on, and how many people have shared it across the country. So I'm super excited to have you here tonight. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks for having me. So I am Christine Jourdain. I've been with the snowmobilers for nearly 30 years.
Wow.
I was really young when I started. And I grew up snowmobiling. So it's a passion to me. My family has grown up. My son just graduated with his master's a couple weeks ago, looking for jobs. And his concern is wherever he takes a job, he wants to be sure he gets enough time off to go snowmobiling.
Amen.
In the winter.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So it's nice to be here. Thanks. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about politics, and most people that snowmobile didn't buy snowmobiles to get involved politically. However, we do.
Yeah, no, and that's the reality. And I mean, here's the little bit that I've been involved, and nothing compared to you, but I still feel like I've probably done far more than the average snowmobiler. So here in the state of Washington, Minnesota as well, actually, I was a club vice president up in the Gull Lake, Minnesota area. I was a vice president of the Gull Lake Drifter Snowmobile Club. I think for actually a little while, I was like a Crow Wing County Snowmobile Association, lead for the county association. And then we had people that came back and forth with MinUSA, the state association there. And then almost 12 years ago, I came out to Washington State and I joined a club here locally. I got involved in our state association. I was actually the State Association of Washington's for snowmobiling, the safety chair. So I led up the safety committee for that for about 5-6 years. And I also joined our Northwest Avalanche Center. And as part of the Washington State Snowmobile Association, I think I went down 2 or 3 times and helped meet our senators. So like the congressmen, the senators, and meet the people who are representing us publicly to advocate for snowmobiling. And that was an amazing experience. And that's kind of almost quote unquote your full-time job, is making sure that the sport of snowmobiling has exposure to the people who are drafting legislation, changing policies, trying to open land, close land, unfortunately. All these are topics that you're fighting every day for all of us. So we're so grateful for that.
Absolutely. Their land, they make decisions on our land access. And so
Yep.
we need to maintain our involvement,
That's
get to
awesome.
know the relationships.
Yeah. So let's break this into like two parts here, but I'll go in chunks and I'll kind of guide you through it. But let's just let everybody know a little bit more about like who is AXA. Let's talk a little bit about like the organization, the structure of it, maybe some of the people that are involved in it. Like how, like I have no idea. Like, is it one person? Is it 10 people? Like how many people are part of the organization? And overall, how would you describe to somebody who maybe doesn't have an understanding yet, what does AXA do just kind of holistically, right?
Sure. So if you think about snowmobiling, you have snowmobile clubs as the foundation, right?
Yep.
They're the ones that are on the ground. They're the ones out there maintaining the landowner relationships, whether it's public or private. And then on top of that, you've got your state associations, like you just said. They're the ones that are making the local decisions on your land access, on legislation, regulations, anything that may affect snowmobiling. And then there's ACSA. So we're the American Council of Snowmobile Associations. So my members are the state snowmobile associations across the country. And we are the umbrella to that. So you go to the state capitol, we go to Washington, D.C. You go to your district rangers, we're working with the Forest Service at the Washington level as well as at the regional level. So it's that's the way it is. Snowmobile clubs are the
Yeah.
foundation, have always been, always will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And volunteers.
Yep.
So we are run by volunteers. So my president this year is Bert Miller from Wyoming.
Okay.
My vice president is Dave Newman from Wisconsin. And my secretary treasurer is Len Neisler from Indiana. My past president is Dan Long from Illinois. So we're really across the country when it comes to leadership.
Which really is what you want. I mean, if you're going to have a national organization, yeah, having that diversity of different states represented and people across the country, all there to support what's going on too. And, and I'm going to make a statement that I think is for kind of maybe the average snowmobiler that wouldn't be aware of how this works. But I think most people think of like AXA is the national organization, and I think they have this vision of like how maybe normal businesses work. Where and I come from like corporate America, where like Walmart and T-Mobile and Microsoft and all these companies, and you think of like a national organization, like quote unquote, and I'm going the wrong direction here for on purpose, just so you know this is generally people I think of like, okay, well, AXA is the one making all the decisions, and they tell then the state associations what to do, and then they tell the clubs what to do. It's actually the opposite of that, right? Like it's the opposite of that. What's happening
Correct.
is the average everyday snowmobiler is quote unquote the most important part of this whole process, right? And so, why don't, in your words, rather than me sharing that, like, why don't you describe to me like the importance of the average everyday snowmobiler and what impact they have on the sport of snowmobiling, and how that then trickles up to AXA, and then how you use that information to go out and advocate for that average everyday snowmobiler. So I'd love to hear you kind of talk through that.
Sure. So in the state association, there is nothing more important than the clubs, the volunteers that are out there on the ground every day. They know their clubs, they know their members, they know the trails or riding areas. That's what they do. They know the contacts at the local level. They know when there's going to be a farm that comes up for sale, and we're going to have a landowner that's going to change and perhaps not be as welcoming to snowmobiling.
Yeah.
Uh, they know when there's a bridge that's about to go out, or a parking lot that needs to be enlarged, or a parking lot built to get the cars off the roads. It is all local run. They tell us, we just carry the message up.
No, absolutely. And then ultimately what you're doing with that message, let's get into a little detail there too, and then we'll help people understand after that, why they should consider supporting AXA and kind of how that all works too, and I'll go into that afterwards. But maybe like just in general at this point, let's talk about something like you said starts at the state association and it comes to AXA. Like, what do you do with that information? Do you work with, I'm going to give out some examples. Like, do you work with like legal counsel teams? Do you go meet with state senators? Do you just kind of coordinate all of that and then bring it forward once a year, once a quarter when you meet with the senators? Like, how do you guys execute this funnel? Like, I think of it as a funnel, right? Like all of the information is coming in the top of this funnel, and it's basically coming down to AXA in a very, I guess I don't know how to say it other than funneled, a filtered way, a funneled way for you guys to be able to have access to them. What's the most important things going on in the country that then you can go advocate for. And so at the point that you're gathering this information, what do you do with it? Like, how do you process it? And then ultimately, what is your end goal that you're trying to accomplish?
So we don't have a specific timeline. Sometimes a timeline may give you a 30 or 60-day comment period. Sometimes if you don't act immediately, you're going to lose.
Yeah,
So it depends on the issue. And so we're ready to go at any point in time when we hear something. And most often it's a phone call away.
yeah,
You Somebody knows the right person to
yep,
contact.
nope,
And
exactly.
you once you start the contacting, you depending on how you're received, you either start to move forward or you need to unleash the dogs and let everybody start making the contacts
Oh, absolutely.
and and then they really start to listen and understand the importance.
Yep.
Snowmobiling takes place in rural America in the winter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like anybody else is going to those areas. So we're important to those areas. I think this year of all years, it really showed with the lack of snow across the
Agreed.
United States.
Yeah.
They
No,
felt us. They
absolutely.
missed us.
Yeah. Are there, Christine, are there other organizations that AXA partners with at a high level? And things that come to mind are things like the Blue Ribbon Coalition, who's also out there advocating and fighting for land access issues. I mean, do you guys have close partnerships with other organizations that you lean into based on what the topic is that you're trying to execute on?
Absolutely. I was a board member for many years with Blue Ribbon
Oh, great,
Coalition.
great.
Uh, and there are others. We work very closely with the Motorcycle Industry
Oh,
Council.
nice. That's good. I
Um,
didn't know that. That's interesting.
yeah, we work with Tread Lightly. We work with Novak. So
Love it.
we work, yeah, we work with all those other groups. Snowmobiling is the smallest group out there, and
Yeah,
so we need a partner to make ourselves a little bit bigger than we are.
yeah. And as a
And we
snowmobile, oh,
all have mutual interest.
say that
We're
again.
not
I'm
just
sorry.
We all have mutual interest. We're not
Oh,
just snowmobilers.
oh,
You
absolutely.
know, we're off-roaders or we're canoers or boaters or skiers. Or, I
Yeah.
mean, we do many things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, like myself, for example, is, I snowmobile all winter, and that's kind of the main sport I've done for years and years. But I've also evolved into your point, motorcycling, right? And so I'm a motorsports person, right? So I motorcycle. I now am an off-roader. I have a Jeep. And then even hiking, though. Like I literally love to go out and just enjoy hikes here in the Pacific Northwest, too, and enjoy the scenery. And so the great outdoors and public land access in general is important. And for someone like me, like the balance of it, like, I don't want some group or some organization trying to shut down more off-road areas so that I can go hiking more. Like, no, I want a balance so that I can have access to both and make sure that there's a balance for everybody to be able to get out. And it's about accessibility. Like, not, I mean, I have people in my circle that they're just not physically able to go out and maybe hike more than a half mile, but you get them in a Jeep or a snowmobile, and now they can get out and access the backcountry in a way that is really, truly what it's meant for, right? To be able to really get out there and be at one with nature, right?
Absolutely. And nothing against cross country skiing, but you can't cross country ski as far as you can snowmobile.
Yeah.
And so if you really want to get to a waterfall, unless you have the ability to get there and get back,
Yeah.
a snowmobile isn't a bad way to go.
Nope, absolutely, absolutely. And so I think of, as a snowmobiler, and like I'm a snowmobile club president here in the local area, right? And so I am constantly advocating for people to like, hey, join our club. Here's all the value that you get out of joining a club and what it's about. And then there's also I'm part of an avalanche center, and I encourage people to become members of the local avalanche center that I'm part of. And then, ARI or whatever it is. And so help people understand why it's so critical that they would consider signing up as a member or supporter or a donator, or maybe it's a volunteer for time even. Maybe somebody who's been volunteering like myself, in clubs or state associations, and it wasn't even maybe fully on the radar that there's volunteer opportunities at a national level with AXA. Just talk us through like what kind of things that AXA needs, whether it be volunteerism, financial funding, maybe even somebody who has legal professional skills, right? But just talk us through that and why there would be value in someone like myself or others who are snowmobilers to support AXA. Like, why is it so critical? Help to articulate that for us.
Education, I would say, first and foremost. There are so many issues out there that we just take for granted that don't maybe impact us until you drill down and you realize they do impact us. And so we just always have to be on the lookout for some of those issues that either affect us as snowmobilers or as outdoors, for just other outdoor activities that we like to do. We're always looking for more people to get involved. We do a weekly electronic newsletter that just is very short, gives links to issues that may impact snowmobiling. I had a couple questions recently. Why are you talking about endangered species? Well,
I know.
because and impact our access. But see, everybody doesn't understand that. That's a snowmobiler asking.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so some of the things we just have to not take for granted and continue to give a little bit more information than we think is necessary.
yeah. In some
But
case,
volunteers are of the utmost importance, from the
yeah,
club level to the state level to the national level, because every state representative in Washington D.C. votes on every issue.
yeah,
Every senator votes. It doesn't matter if they're from Hawaii and they're voting on an issue about snowmobiling in Montana. Those folks are voting.
yeah, yeah.
That's the way.
And I would just encourage, people, if they have access, like, I mean, why don't you just verbally tell us, like, well, let's start with this, like, how can people support you, right? Is there a link on your website that people can either be a member or donate to? If somebody wants to volunteer, if they want to get added to your newsletter, distribution list, like, talk us through some of that information of how people can get directly involved with you guys.
Sure. We have two websites, snowmobilers.org,
Okay.
and that's where you can sign up for the newsletter. That's where we have lots of information. And then we have snowmobileinfo.org,
Okay.
and that's pure information. There's scientific studies on there, there's economic impact studies, there's free posters and um, anything you want for safety, night riding, avalanche riding, road crossing. So there's all kinds of really good information that we partnered with the Federal Highway Administration on.
Okay.
And so that information is out there. So there's the two websites, snowmobilers.org and snowmobileinfo.org.
Okay.
And you can sign up on the newsletter on either one of those.
Okay. And what about like financial contributions? Is there an option to become a member of ACSA, an official member, or how does that work?
Yes, you can become a member or you can become a friend of snowmobiling. So you can do either one of those.
And those are on the
Some people don't
websites?
want to be a member; they just want to be a friend, so
Okay.
that it's just a
So funny.
judgment.
Yeah, it's so funny in the nonprofit world. There's members, there's friends of, there's all these different titles that we use, but in the end, we're providing some level of financial support. And sometimes it's a one-time donation, sometimes it's a monthly donation, sometimes it's annual. Depends on how you want to do it. Is it just a free ratio? Like, could it be $1 to $1,000, or is there like, to become a member, can I pay $25 a year, or like, how does that work?
Our members are $15 a family, $25 a club.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty cheap for 1 year.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I know our club here in the Cascade Drift Skippers that I'm a president of. For years, we've been members of the thing, the of AXA. So
But we appreciate that. Thank
yep,
you.
yep, very much, very much. Well, let's talk about some specific issues that you guys have been working on currently, just to kind of help people like really grasp the type of work you're doing and where maybe you're making some impact in different parts of the country. If you have examples from several different areas.
Sure. So we just came back from Washington, D.C. about a month ago.
Okay.
We held our 22nd annual D.C. fly-in. So we have snowmobilers from across the country that travel to Washington, D.C. We spend 1 day business meetings. We spend 1 day with leaders. So leaders from the agencies, staffers from Capitol Hill, our partners, talk about the issues that impact us, some of the challenges that we're facing. And then we spend 1 day up on Capitol Hill and we meet with all the state legislators from each state and their senators as well as their representatives. It's a great opportunity. They look for us. We have little snowmobile pins
Yeah.
we wear. You're in an elevator, somebody's saying, "Hey, when's somebody come to see us today?" So they all know we're coming.
Yeah.
We were there this year on a really good time. They had a couple of hot issues. Funding was one of the issues, and so it was just good timing for us to be there, as well as land access issues like the BLM and their current movement right now. And so they had an issue come up in the House on that passed out of the House while we were there. So
Okay.
just a good time to be there and talk about the issues. 30 by 30, that's the land access issue that the Biden administration is pushing. 30% of all waters, 30% of all public lands to be set aside by 2030. That's our land access. That's where the BLM issue is coming in right now, as well as some of the others. Endangered species. That's a push because that will shut off access,
Yeah.
not just to us, but to many
Yeah,
people.
no, exactly. Nope, exactly. And some people might not know that the acronym BLM also stands for Bureau of Land Management. So obviously, in recent years in news, it can mean other things, but in this case, it's Bureau of Land Management is what we're referring to, and it's the National Land Bureau, I guess, is what it would be called. So
Yeah, the largest land agency there is.
yeah,
So they have a lot of land. They're under the Department of Interior,
okay,
and so a lot of that impacts everything else that's under Interior as well, right? So you've got the National Park Service, you've got the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's pretty widespread.
gotcha, gotcha.
Another
Okay,
topic is the recreational trails plan. That's where our gas tax dollars, our federal gas tax dollars, every time we fill our snowmobile, we're not using them on federal highways, right?
yep,
It's
yep,
not it's not our trucks, it's only our snowmobiles. And so that money gets set aside for us to put back in the trail system. And that's coming up with the highway bill next year. And with everything going on and with automobiles,
yeah.
we're going to see some changes coming forward. So we need to get out there ahead of it and protect those dollars because they're crucial to
Yeah,
the snowmobile industry.
absolutely,
Club
absolutely. Say that last part again.
the snowmobile clubs count on those
Oh,
dollars.
100%. Yeah. No, here in the state of Washington, I know that's a big part of our state budget too. Like, I'll give you a quick example here for the state of Washington is we pay a $50 registration fee, and that goes directly into the Snowmobile Grooming Fund here in the state of Washington. And then on top of that, there's an additional, I think it's like $46, or, maybe $44 that goes into it from the unrefunded gas tax that you're referring to. And so combined, it's about, $94, $96 in that ballpark of the amount of money for every snowmobile that's registered. And what we're seeing here in Washington or in Washington State is that it's sad. There's probably a combination of people who are legitimately just getting out of the sport, but there's also I hate to see it, and I see it on social media, people who are a little bit belligerent about the fact that they're not going to register their snowmobiles because they aren't happy with something or they think they're getting away with it or whatever. And what they don't realize is they're literally just destroying the future of snowmobiling because that's the funding we're counting on. Folks like yourself, myself, we're all out there advocating and making this happen. And this is the inevitable thing that happens is like, okay, less people register snowmobiles, and so now the people who still are have to probably pay more in order to keep enough money in the bucket to like keep the infrastructure in place. And we're going through that here in Washington this year where the Forest Service is talking about shutting down a percentage or a certain small number of snow parks this coming season, maybe on a temporary basis, maybe permanent, they don't know yet, but they're going to position it as temporary because we're running out of funding. We went from like 28,000 snowmobiles registered down to like 18,000. So it's been a major, major hit over the last 10 years of what we're up against. And so, organizations like the Washington State Snowmobile Association, ACSA, you guys are the ones out there making sure that that infrastructure is in place and the funding's in place. But at the end of the day, all of us have the accountability of making sure that we are registering our sleds and paying our ways and the fees, as well as all of our friends and people we see in the snow parks. If you see someone without registration on their sleds, go over and ask them about it, and then encourage them to get involved in a club or help them educate them about why that's important, right? So
Because sometimes they don't know what that money really goes for.
exactly.
And it's not just state government. It's for things that we actually use on a daily basis when we
Yeah.
ride.
Nope. 100%. And so,
Yeah.
Christine, I think some of the big topics we've talked about, but like, what else? Is there any other examples you have of things you wanted to share tonight, or just in general, like any other topics you want to dive deeper into? We still have plenty of time if you need it. So,
Sure. So the Forest Service a few years ago started this over snow vehicle plan.
okay.
And that's to come to fruition. California is where it's going to start. They're looking right now at 12-inch minimum depths in California for trail areas and 12 inches on trails, 24 inches out in off trail riding.
Yep.
I don't know how they're going to determine, who measures what time of day,
I know,
whatever.
right?
But in some places in the Midwest, I can tell you, 12 inches before they can take a groomer out is a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
We like to get those trails started to compress earlier than waiting
Yep.
for that first 12 inches. So that's crucial. We're going to see more of that come on a forest by forest basis across the country.
Okay.
So we just need to maintain those relationships on the local level because that's where we're going to hear about that information. One of the other things we have is we have a group called the Friends of Snowmobiling Political Action Committee.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's a small pack, but it's small but mighty. It opens doors. really like to get snowmobilers to go out and visit with those candidates running for federal office. That's what it's the only thing they're licensed to do.
Yeah.
And the cheapest place to do that is in your local area. Washington, D.C. is $1,000 a ticket.
Yeah.
In your local area is $100 a ticket.
Nice.
It's just better to see them. So that's a really important thing that we do. We've just started another program for developing future leaders. We realize a lot of the volunteers are aging out and running out of energy and time. And we've got younger people that are just a little bit different sometimes in the structure. They're spending more time at home. So we're trying to figure out how to get some of those younger folks involved, making good use of their time. They have limited time. We need to figure out how to be able to use that to the best of the club or the state association's ability.
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
we have that, and we have the International Snowmobile Council Congress coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. So yeah, like give us some details on what that's about. So
that's the 54th annual. It's in Green Bay, Wisconsin this year. There's going to be over 400 snowmobilers there from across the country and Canada talking about snowmobile issues. And so it'll be 3 days full of snowmobile topics.
Well, a lot of different companies show up too that are part of the snowmobile industry as well too. You have representation from a lot of the big snowmobile manufacturers and probably other companies as well that have a vested interest in this sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the snowmobile manufacturers will be there for sure. And the groomers have a really big presence there as well. They'll bring their equipment. We have a groomer workshop. We have a groomer reception. So there's a lot of one-on-one talk with the groomers, with those folks that are making the groomers and selling the groomers, and can take ideas and suggestions back. It's a great place to exchange ideas.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, great. Any other thoughts you have before I ask you kind of some final questions here?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, let's try to think about, for the average person who, maybe isn't even involved in a snowmobile club yet, which frankly there's a lot of. I think, I know personally, locally, like, there's a lot of people I ride with that are part of our club, but I ride with a lot of people who just have chosen not to be part of a club yet. But like, why, help people understand like why it's important for them to become active in the longevity of what snowmobiling is, rather than just going out and participating in it. How can they get involved, whether it be through a club, a state association, maybe volunteering for trail, just give us your pitch on, why it's important to be part of organized snowmobiling. And then, once again, how they can support ACSA and the work you guys are doing.
So from the local perspective, you need to join a club for the fun, because then you have people to go ride with. Clubs have weekly rides. They do different things. As well as take care of the trails. Trails don't just happen. Parking lots don't just happen. Signs just don't happen. It takes people, and it's fun. You can make it fun to do things like that, and as well as getting things accomplished.
Yeah.
So clubs are really important from that perspective. It takes a lot of money to buy a groomer. It takes a lot of money to build a barn for that groomer.
Yep.
And somebody has to wrench on that thing all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's where clubs are so crucial. And that's where there are just never enough volunteers.
Yep.
And we need to invite new people to snowmobile. A lot of farms are now turning into subdivisions. I think we've seen that with COVID. A lot of people from the cities have moved out and up to areas that they may have had cabins.
Yeah.
And they didn't visit those in the winter. Now they're living there, and they're like, what the heck is going on around here in the winter? So we need to get those folks out and understanding why snowmobiling is important, and why we need their help. They need to be our partners.
Nope,
because we're in rural America. We need those snowmobile dollars in the middle of winter.
Nope,
That's
absolutely.
That's what keeps things going.
Yeah, and in different times when we've had discussions like this, whether it be in person at different meetings, state association meetings, I've shared some thoughts that I think I'm compelled to share again here with everybody, because what I'm about to share and what I'm going to say is really for the audience. And what I want you guys to hear is that I'm speaking to the younger, newer club members that might be considering becoming part of it. But I also am going to follow up and finish out with, what do I want the folks who you've referred to as like who are aging out of this, right? Like maybe they're still active in clubs and state organizations in there too. And this comment is going to cover everything, right? Is that it's really important for people to come and be involved, right? And I think that's the starting point. And what I've seen, and I'm kind of in the middle, right? Like I'm now 50 years old. I'm kind of in the middle of this window where the younger people are below me coming in, the people quite a bit older than me that are still part of it and active. And what I've witnessed is that it's really important for the younger generation and the people coming in to understand that the current, older generation, say in their 60s and 70s now, who are still part of this, many of them across the country legitimately started clubs and started the network of trails that exist and stuff. But we're talking back in the 60s and the 70s when they were actively snowmobiling. This is something that this older generation is so passionate about, and why they're still engaged and involved and don't quote unquote want to let it go from their hands is because this is the baby that they created, right? And that is so important to them, and they see so much value in it that they kind of don't want to let it go. And so there's a lot of personal, physical, emotional attachment to it, right? I'll stop there for a second. And then I want to share with the other folks coming in that, I've seen it where new ideas and different folks come in, and sometimes they share new ideas. And what I've overheard happen is like, well, that's not the way we've done it, or that's not how we've been doing it. And it creates this discussion where people come in and they want to be part of it, but then they feel like nobody's listening to them. And then they just spend a year or two there, and then they're like, I'll wait, I'll just wait till those other people are gone, and then maybe I'll come and help again. Right. But then on the other end of the spectrum, speaking to the older generation who is eager and desperate and wanting people to come in and be part of it, is don't be afraid to give up some of that control that we've had for so many years, right? I've seen that too, where we've been doing it this way for so long and this has worked. But the reality is if we did that in a job, like, in my professional career, if I did today at 50 years old what I did 20, 30 years ago when I was 20 years old, I wouldn't be successful, right? Like I've had to evolve in my job, in my career, in my business. Any good business is going to evolve and transition. The advent of things like social media and the ability for people to look up and have trail apps now, they don't need a paper map anymore now, right? They can go get an Onyx app and go now figure out all the trails are. So as things evolve, it's important for both sides of this conversation to really understand the point of view of both, right? And so the younger generation comes in, they want to have ideas and they need to be encouraged and brought in, while at the same time the older generation, they're so passionate about it. But also they need to understand that sometimes it's better to just let go, to bring people in and get them engaged. And even if it involves, just know that you still started that baby, but maybe it's going to grow to be a bigger baby.
Yeah, right. And somewhere in between, they have to work together.
Amen.
The younger folks coming in, they want instant gratification. They
Yep.
want to just
Yep.
be able to go get it. And the older folks say, no, that's not the way it works. Can't do that. Somewhere in between,
Amen.
they
Yep.
have to continue to work together, and we'll get.
Yeah.
There's
No,
a lot of work for everybody to do.
and I hope that thought shares and adds some kind of value to everybody listening from both sides of the perspective, because like I said, myself, I've not been at the national level yet, but I've been at the state level, I've been at the club level, I've been just a snowmobiler. And, those are the type of things that I continue to see drive some tension on why maybe new people aren't joining sometimes, and maybe why when new people join, they don't understand why things are, I'm just trying to give them both perspective on both sides so that they can value the point of view from each other. So.
Yes, yep. And we all, it all comes down to, we all want to ride.
Amen.
And,
Yep.
and we just work together to continue to have that access to ride.
Very good, very good. Well, Christine, I think it's appropriate time to just any thank yous you have, any shout outs, any big partnerships that you have with that you want to just say thank you to, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
Well, I would always thank our volunteers. Without our volunteers, we have nothing. So from the state associations, from the clubs, and from those that are our officers and delegates to the American Council of Snowmobile Associations, thanks to them always. Yeah. Thanks to the manufacturers, the snowmobile manufacturers, the groomer manufacturers, the stud manufacturers. All those folks really play a very important part, and we would be remiss not to always say thank you to all of them, as well as those that support us. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to say thank you to you, Christine, for taking the time on this. For you, it's 9:30 already at night. And so it's still early over here on the West Coast, but over in Michigan where you're at, it's getting later. And I appreciate you taking the time tonight to come and meet with all the people who wanted to hear what you had to say tonight. And for those who maybe haven't ever watched the show, I just will remind you that, live large. And what the heck is this name, Live Large Universe? What I tell everybody it means is live life to the fullest, make the most of every day, and make a difference to others. And frankly, that's what we're trying to do here tonight is, make a difference to people and make a difference to the whole snowmobile community, right? It's if we've educated one person or two people on either side of this discussion or in this, in the middle, anywhere in the middle, I hope everybody got a little bit of a nugget away from tonight's discussion, and would encourage them to go track down, the American Council of Snowmobile Associations, ACSA. Why don't you one more time give us those website names where they can find you and look you up and support you?
Absolutely. Snowmobilers.org and snowmobileinfo.org. Thank you, John. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for including us tonight. And thanks to everybody out there for tuning in.
Perfect. Christine, you go ahead and hang on. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show here. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.